I'm Lena Marlowe, 39, and for the past 2.5 years, I've shared my home with Jason Hale, 35, the man I thought I loved. My home. The one I had bought years before ever meeting him. A house that smelled of fresh paint and dreams I'd built myself. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. Now it felt off. Jason had been seeing Dr. Aris Calder, a softly spoken therapist with a serene, unsettling confidence, for 6 months. At first, I thought it was harmless, even helpful. If it kept him grounded, fine, but slowly, everything changed. Our conversations, our quiet nights, even the way he looked at me, all filtered through the prism of therapy language I didn't understand. "Lena, I'm feeling a lot of avoidant energy from you tonight," he'd say, his brows furrowing as if he'd just uncovered some secret fault line in my soul. Or, "Your boundaries are clashing with my positivity," as he sidestepped a simple disagreement over what to cook for dinner. It was exhausting. Every minor frustration was reframed as a symptom of my supposed toxicity, and I tolerated it. After all, he said it helped him heal. And wasn't love, at some level, about sacrifice? Then there were the texts. From Serena Vale, his ex-girlfriend. At first, I tried to ignore them. "She just needs closure," Jason explained. "Dr. Aris recommended it." But the messages grew more persistent, subtly coaxing, like whispers I wasn't supposed to hear. I hated the way he justified it, the way he reassured himself that her influence didn't matter. I watched him retreat more and more into this world of spiritual jargon and therapy buzzwords. He started sleeping in the guest room because my energy spikes at night. He rearranged furniture to create positive energy flow. And always, I was the one who wasn't aligned, the one who needed to adjust. The tension simmered quietly for months, like a storm gathering beyond the horizon. Then came the day I will never forget. It was a Tuesday morning, gray and heavy with rain. Jason had that calm, serene expression he gets before dropping something that will fracture the room. "Lena," he said, his voice soft, almost tender. I looked up from my coffee, sensing the shift. "My therapist says this house is my safe space." I blinked, uncertain if I'd heard correctly. He continued, "So, you need to move out for a week." "A week? Move out of my own house?" "To cleanse the energy," he added, as if that explained everything. I set my mug down, the warmth of the coffee barely reaching my hands. My mind raced. Was this a joke? Was he serious? The calm certainty in his eyes told me he believed every word. And suddenly, something inside me, something that had been simmering quietly beneath the surface, snapped awake. I nodded slowly, keeping my face neutral. "I understand," I said. His relief was immediate, almost radiant. "Thank you, Lena. This is so healthy for us. I totally get it." He meant it. He was completely convinced he had the right to evict me from my own home under the guise of healing. I walked upstairs to pack, not with fear or anger, not yet, but with clarity. Clothes for a week, my laptop, documents I couldn't risk leaving behind, every item carefully chosen. I paused in front of the mirror in the hallway and studied myself. Calm, collected, observant. The Lena who would excuse behavior for love had vanished somewhere between his first therapy session and the steady creep of Serena's influence. I left a small note on the kitchen counter, nothing dramatic, just, "Out for a week. House is yours to cleanse." The rain pattered against the windows as I stepped out. The air was cold and clean, carrying a faint scent of wet earth and distant pine. I got into my car and drove to a nearby extended stay hotel, about 20 minutes away. As I pulled in, the thought struck me. I could feel their absence, or rather, the absence of the life I thought I shared. I checked in, logged onto the Wi-Fi, and sank into the quiet hum of the room. For a moment, it was just me, breathing, noticing every detail. The hum of the air conditioner, the distant murmur of the highway, the faint tang of disinfectant in the air. For the first time in months, I felt like I could think, really think. I began to plan. Jason's belief that leaving me alone in my own home would somehow allow him to heal was naive, and I realized, dangerous. I could see the entire pattern now. Him, influenced by Dr. Aris, increasingly obsessed with control. Serena, quietly nudging him, reinforcing the idea that the home and the heart could be partitioned, taken over. And me, the woman who had bought the house, carried most of the bills, and loved him fully, suddenly sidelined. A cold, methodical part of my mind switched on. The Lena who would forgive and bend, the one who allowed herself to be gaslit, faded. She was replaced by someone precise, calculating, patient. I sipped my tea, feeling an odd thrill at the clarity. A week, he said, a week to cleanse his space. But what he didn't know was that I didn't need to leave to act. A plan formed quietly, invisibly, like the careful layering of a painting, deliberate strokes building toward the inevitable reveal. I thought about the way the house felt yesterday, how the energy shifted when he mentioned my safe space. The furniture, the lights, the air itself. He believed he owned it emotionally now. But ownership of a house is not ownership of a life, not of memories, not of loyalty, not of the truth. For now, I would let him believe he was in control, let him relish the perceived victory. But beneath the calm, my mind traced every step I would take, every text, every phone call, every small, deliberate move that would ensure the balance of power shifted back to where it belonged. I made a small note in the notebook I always kept at my bedside. Observe, wait, act, precision over passion. Outside, the rain eased into a steady drizzle. In the quiet, I realized something crucial. The storm wasn't just coming, it was already here. And for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. I woke up in the hotel room with the soft hum of the air conditioner and a strange sense of detachment. The city outside was still blurred by early morning fog, and for a moment, I allowed myself to breathe, to let the calm wash over me. 2.5 years. Every dinner, every laugh, every shared silence, it all came rushing back, tangled with the shock of Jason's demand. My therapist says this house is my safe space. You need to move out for a week. I traced the words again in my mind, tasting the absurdity, the audacity, and the terrifying clarity of them. He believed it, completely. He believed that by asking me to leave, he was showing love, respect, even maturity. He had no idea that he had just handed me a window of opportunity. I made a decision, calm, methodical, deliberate. I would leave, but not in the way he thought. I would use this time to reclaim the control he had so recklessly tried to take. First, I called the gas company. My voice was soft, almost casual. Yes, this is the homeowner. There's a strong odor near the furnace. I need an immediate emergency shutoff. The woman on the line sounded concerned, but efficient. An hour later, the furnace would be tagged, the house officially unsafe. Next, the water company. I'm the owner. There's an internal pipe burst. Please shut it off immediately. No questions, just procedure. Then the electric company. Vacation maintenance shut off, scheduled to start in 1 hour. I placed my phone on Do Not Disturb. My fingers lingered over the edge of the notebook I had brought with me. Notes, names, reminders, everything that would help me stay a step ahead. I ordered room service, a club sandwich, cold fries on the side, and black tea. I had time now, time to think. 3 hours later, the text started. Jason. His tone switched violently from confusion to panic to desperation. Lena, the power just went out. Did you forget to pay the bill? It's pitch black. The heat just clicked off. I'm freezing. The water isn't working. I can't even flush the toilet. What is going on? Call me now. You're trying to punish me. This is psychotic. Turn it back on immediately. I smiled faintly, sipping my tea. My response was deliberate, calm. Wow, that's crazy. Must be a massive neighborhood outage. So glad I'm at this hotel. I'm turning my phone off to reflect, like you suggested. Have a great week. And then I blocked him. Silence. Sweet, quiet silence. But I wasn't done. Not nearly. The moment Jason realized that the house, the space he claimed as his safe haven, was entirely out of reach, he would panic. That panic was the window I needed to assert the next phase. Permanent reclaiming of my home, my space, my autonomy. I contacted an emergency moving company. I paid triple rates without hesitation. Everything. His clothing, books, workout equipment, yoga mats, journals, candles, the ridiculous array of energy crystals was to be moved. Every item that marked him in my space. Everything in the master bedroom closet, the spare office, the bathroom cabinets. The movers arrived within 2 hours. I met them at the door, calm, collected, watching as they packed and loaded with professional precision. While they worked, I called a locksmith and a security company. By late afternoon, all locks were changed and the security system installed. My home, cold, empty, silent, felt enormous and entirely mine. The power was back on, the water running, the heat humming, the walls no longer whispering of manipulation. I sent Jason a single message. Your safe space is now your own. Your belongings are in storage. Here is the address, the unit number, and the key code. The first month is paid for. The relationship is over. Any attempt to enter my property will be considered trespassing. Goodbye. Then I blocked him, and Serena. The silence that followed was deafening, but the calm was almost intoxicating. Yet even as I settled into the peace, my mind remained vigilant. I replayed the events, tracing the chain that had brought me here. Jason, influenced by a therapist I had never trusted, the subtle resurgence of Serena, the months of manipulative language, spiritual jargon, and passive accusations. I had been patient, forgiving, accommodating, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I thought about the upcoming days, the texts, the calls, the likely threats. I was ready. I had the legal framework ready, the documentation of ownership, the storage receipts, the proof of all communications. I would not be blindsided. I would not be gaslit. I would not allow them to turn my home into a playground for their delusions. And beneath it all, a thrill coursed through me. This was more than a countermove. It was reclamation. Not just of space, but of dignity, of clarity, of self-respect. The Lena who had tolerated subtle manipulation, who had excused eccentricity in the name of love, was gone. In her place, a quiet, precise force had emerged, the kind that bends chaos into order. I made one final note before nightfall. Observe, wait, act. Precision over passion. Every move Jason would make now could be anticipated, measured, countered. Every emotional volley, every desperate attempt to reclaim what he had never owned would meet calm, deliberate resistance. And then I allowed myself a rare, private smile. For months I had walked on the edges of exhaustion, emotionally drained, questioning my sanity. Now, for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt the exquisite calm of control. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights reflected on the wet streets, a glittering, indifferent audience to my quiet victory. Somewhere, Jason was panicking, his sense of order disrupted. Serena, if she even knew, was surely scheming, but for now, it did not matter. I stretched, poured another cup of tea, and settled into the quiet. My house was mine again, even if only temporarily, and I had plans to ensure it stayed that way. The storm was coming. I had no illusions about that, but unlike before, I wasn't standing at the edge, waiting to be swept away. I was the calm center, the eye of it all, and I would endure no matter what. The next morning, I awoke to the faint hum of my laptop, the scent of leftover tea in the room, and a gnawing awareness that Jason wouldn't stay silent for long. I expected texts, calls, perhaps even legal threats. What I didn't expect was the ferocity, the unrelenting, entitled fury that poured from him like a storm I had willingly stepped into, fully armed. His first salvo came through my email. Dozens of messages, each more desperate than the last. Lena, this is insane. You can't just do this. The house is mine too. You're punishing me. I can't live like this. My therapist said you would understand. Please, stop. You've crossed a line. This is abusive. I'm coming to the house. I sat quietly, scrolling through, noting the language, the framing. Each message was laced with the same psychological manipulation he had perfected over the past 6 months. Guilt, fear, accusation, a masterclass in emotional leverage, and each one was addressed to a version of me that no longer existed. I opened my notebook and made a single neat entry. Predict, counter, neutralize. Then the phone rang. Jason. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was a frantic, unhinged monologue full of self-pity and anger, broken by staccato breaths and pauses. Lena, I just want to talk. This is not fair. I can't believe you've done this. I'm trying to heal, and you're punishing me. Please don't make this permanent. I sat back, feeling a cold clarity settle over me. He had mistaken panic for leverage, confusion for surrender. I had seen this pattern before, his desperation, his frantic attempts to manipulate through emotion, and it no longer intimidated me. It was time for action. I called my lawyer, Marissa Chen, a sharp, precise woman who didn't do drama, only results. I detailed everything: the safe space demand, the sudden eviction, the utility shutdown, the movers, the storage unit. She listened quietly, her pen scratching, her eyes scanning each document I had sent her. "You've done everything by the book," she said, leaning back. "He has no legal claim. He's a guest, not a tenant. You've documented every step, every attempt to warn him. He's trying to weaponize emotion against law, and he will fail." Her confidence was infectious. For the first time since that morning, I felt unshakably grounded. While Marissa drafted the official notice, I reviewed my home through the security cameras I had installed. The house was cold, empty, yet filled with a strange sense of possibility. Every room, every corner, every shadow was mine to reclaim. I could feel it, the calm pulse of ownership, the deep, quiet satisfaction of control restored. But the texts and emails didn't stop. Jason's messages now carried a new tone, a dangerous mix of entitlement and obsession. "Lena, I'm coming by tonight. You can't just erase me. You don't understand. You've changed. This isn't love." I ignored them, calm, collected, precise. Then came the call from Serena, his ex. I hadn't expected it, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to answer. But curiosity, and the faint suspicion that she had been part of this orchestrated chaos, compelled me. Her voice trembled, not with anger, not with accusation, but with a strange, fearful honesty. "Lena, I need to tell you something. He does this. To me too. The therapy, the safe space, the manipulation. I thought I was crazy. I thought it was me, but it's him. And now, it's you." I froze. Every subtle push, every odd argument, every escalation, it made sense now. Serena's warning connected dots I hadn't seen before. This wasn't random chaos or simple entitlement. It was a pattern, a meticulously cultivated cycle of control. She hesitated, then whispered, "I thought I could fix it, but I couldn't. He doesn't know how to stop. He doesn't want to. Please, watch yourself." Her words echoed in my mind. The pieces fell into place. The therapist, the spiritual jargon, the obsession with energy and safe spaces, the constant reframing of reality. I realized that Jason hadn't just tried to manipulate me emotionally. He had been groomed to do this, encouraged, reinforced, perhaps even instructed. A creeping chill ran down my spine. The manipulation extended beyond him. It was a system, a network, and I was caught in the middle. But unlike before, I had the clarity to respond, not react. I spent the night methodically cataloging every communication, every receipt, every text, every email. Each was a thread in the larger tapestry of deception, and for the first time, I saw the full pattern. By morning, I had a plan. Jason's attempts at intimidation would be met with documentation. His ex-girlfriend's warnings would guide my steps. And the house, my house, would remain a sanctuary, free of the toxic energies he had tried to impose. The calm was deceptive, though. I could feel the tension building, like a string pulled taut. Jason would escalate. Serena had warned me, and I would be ready. For the first time in months, I smiled. Not out of cruelty, not out of triumph, but out of clarity. I had anticipated the storm, prepared for it, and I was unshakable. This was more than a reclaiming of space. It was a reclamation of self, and nothing, not panic, not lies, not manipulation, would undo that. Outside, the sun broke through the fog, illuminating the city with cold, sharp clarity. The calm after the first wave of chaos was deceptive. I knew what was coming. I could almost see it. The tension, the desperate emotional maneuvers, the attempts to fracture me. But for the first time, I didn't fear it. I would endure. I would act. I would emerge intact, and my home, my sanctuary, would remain mine. The storm wasn't over, but I had already won the first battle, and I would win the war. It was 3 days into my self-imposed exile at the hotel when the final piece of the puzzle fell into my lap. I was sipping lukewarm tea, scrolling through security footage of my own home, now eerily empty and silent, when I noticed something strange. A small, folded receipt tucked under a book Jason had left behind in the spare office. Curiosity piqued. I retrieved the item from storage and unfolded it carefully. My eyes narrowed. It wasn't just any receipt. It was for a high-end cologne, purchased just 3 weeks ago in a brand I had never worn, nor could I imagine Jason choosing for himself. And next to it, a scribbled note, faint and hurried, for AC. A chill ran down my spine. Dr. Eris Calder, the therapist, the spiritual guide, the man whose counsel Jason had leaned on for months, the man who had legitimized every safe space demand, every subtle emotional manipulation. And suddenly, the pieces aligned in a horrifyingly clear pattern. The week Jason had demanded I vacate the house, that wasn't about healing, energy, or spiritual alignment. It was about creating a space for Dr. Eris, for them, to occupy my life while I was temporarily removed. The therapist, the ex-girlfriend, the manipulation, the constant reframing of reality. It had all been orchestrated. My home had become a stage, and I was the unwitting audience. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to remain calm. The Lena who acted on impulse, who forgave too easily, who allowed emotional manipulation to bend her reality. She was gone. The Lena who remained was precise, calculated, methodical. I pulled out my phone and composed a message to Dr. Calder, careful, cold, deliberate. Subject: invoice discrepancy and lost item. Hello, Dr. Calder. I have been paying your invoices for Jason's counseling sessions. I've discovered a purchase that seems inconsistent with therapeutic guidance, a high-end cologne tied to recent sessions. Additionally, an item linked to your client was left in my home. I expect clarification. Legal counsel has been informed and will be monitoring your response. This correspondence is a formal request to cease any inappropriate involvement in my household or personal affairs. I hit send before allowing myself to think further. This was chess, not checkers. Every move had to be precise, deliberate. Almost immediately, the messages from Jason intensified. Panic, accusation, veiled threats. But now, armed with clarity, I ignored them. Calm was my ally. Documentation my shield. Strategy my weapon. Then came a call from Serena, trembling but earnest. Lena, you don't understand. I thought it was me. I thought I was the problem, but he's been doing this for years. He manipulates. He isolates. He uses therapy as a tool, not a cure. You're seeing it now, but I didn't. Not until it was too late. Be careful. Her words were not warnings, but confirmations. Jason had never changed. He was the architect of this chaos, guided by Dr. Calder, subtly reinforced by Serena's presence. The safe space was a lie. The therapy a facade. The emotional manipulation, a calculated plan. I spent the rest of the day preparing, every communication cataloged, every security measure checked, every potential threat anticipated. The movers, the locksmith, the storage unit, all arranged for permanent control. My home would remain a sanctuary, free from manipulation, free from intrusion, free from the chaos that had tried to claim it. And then, almost like a twist in the story I had been living, Dr. Calder responded. His message was carefully measured, almost theatrical. Dear Ms. Marlowe, I understand your concerns. It was never my intention for therapeutic guidance to cause distress or manipulation. I am willing to settle any outstanding issues amicably, including covering storage costs for Jason's belongings. Please consider this a formal resolution offer. I smiled faintly. He hadn't just been a therapist. He had been complicit. And now, faced with exposure, he was attempting to buy compliance, buy silence. But I was beyond negotiation, beyond fear, beyond manipulation. I contacted my lawyer, Marissa, who confirmed my instincts. Any attempt by Dr. Calder to interfere further would be legally constrained, especially after my documentation and careful preservation of evidence. I felt the first real surge of victory, tempered by exhaustion and lingering betrayal. Then came the final confirmation from Serena. She had sent a notarized letter relinquishing any claim to my home, admitting that her involvement in the manipulation was based on misunderstanding and external influence. The signature was shaky but unmistakable. The acknowledgement, ironclad. I sat back, letting it sink in. Jason's manipulation, the ex-girlfriend's interference, the therapist's abuse of trust, all nullified by documentation, strategy, and clarity of purpose. My house, my sanctuary, my life, intact. The thrill of victory was tempered by the lessons carved into me like stone. Trust is earned. Space is sacred. Manipulation can come in the guise of love, guidance, or healing, but awareness, clarity, and careful action can reclaim what is rightfully yours. As evening fell, I retrieved the ugly green tray, the absurd item that had inadvertently exposed the entire plot, and the receipt for the cologne. I carried them to the back porch, struck a match, and watched them burn. Black flakes drifted in the wind, a tangible, satisfying symbol of control reclaimed, of deceit vanquished, of manipulation undone. For the first time in months, I breathed freely. The storm had arrived, yes, but I had not only survived it, I had emerged stronger, sharper, and resolute. My home, my space, my life belonged to me. And the truth finally was mine to keep. The days after the revelation were quiet, but not empty. My home, once filled with the chaos of manipulation and entitlement, now felt vast, safe, and deliberately mine. Every room, every wall, every corner carried the weight of my reclamation. Not just of space, but of autonomy, dignity, and clarity. I walked through the empty house in the morning light, touching the smooth surfaces, feeling the hum of the heating system, the gentle drip of the water, all functioning perfectly. The house was alive, but on my terms. Every sound, every shadow, every echo of memory belonged to me. No whispers of manipulation lingered. No invisible hand tried to guide me. For the first time in months, I was completely free. The calls and texts from Jason had slowed, reduced to sporadic, desperate voicemails pleading for contact, for understanding, for validation. I ignored them all. My lawyer confirmed that any continued attempts to intrude would be legally actionable. Serena's notarized letter and Dr. Calder's reluctant acknowledgement created a clear, unbreakable boundary. Their chaos could no longer touch me. But the emotional work was just beginning. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat in the living room, notebook open, writing down every thought, every reflection. I allowed myself to feel the betrayal, the shock, the grief for the years lost in manipulation. But I also noted the growth, the clarity, the power I had reclaimed. 2.5 years, I wrote, spent building a life, a shared world with someone I trusted, only to discover that trust was a carefully curated illusion. But the illusion is gone. The reality is mine. Friends began to check in, sensing the tension, the silence, the storm that had passed. I accepted their calls, their messages, but kept the details close to my chest. This was my victory, private and precise, and I needed to savor it alone before sharing it with anyone else. One evening, I stood on the balcony, watching the city lights twinkle beneath the inky sky. The wind carried a faint chill, but I felt only warmth inside. I realized then that this was more than a story of manipulation, revenge, or reclaiming a house. It was a story of boundaries, self-respect, and the courage to act when others violate your space, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. I thought of Jason. I thought of the therapist. I thought of Serena. They had all played roles in a drama meant to displace me, to destabilize me, to make me question reality. But I had not wavered. I had watched, I had waited, I had acted, and I had won. Not with rage, not with chaos, but with precision, calm, and unwavering focus. The storage unit, once a symbol of eviction and threat, had become a monument of my strategy. Every item stored, every lock changed, every security measure implemented was a testament to the fact that I controlled my space. My home was no longer a stage for their manipulations. It was mine, completely, irrevocably mine. And then there was the small, absurd victory. The green tray and the cologne receipt. Burned to ashes, they were the final physical remnants of their scheme. The ritual was strangely satisfying, a symbolic end to the manipulation, the entitlement, the lies. Watching the black flakes drift into the wind, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. I spent the next week slowly reintegrating into my home. I cleaned, organized, and redecorated slightly. Small touches that reaffirmed my ownership, my presence, my energy. Each action was deliberate, a subtle assertion that the house and my life were no longer up for negotiation. Late one night, I received a final email from Dr. Calder, carefully worded, almost pleading. Ms. Marlowe, I acknowledge your correspondence and understand the boundaries you have set. I will have no further contact with you or Jason regarding personal matters. I hope you find peace and clarity. I did not respond. Silence was my final message, my boundary made absolute. And then, for the first time, I allowed myself to reflect on what had truly changed. The betrayal, the manipulation, the chaos, they had tested me in every way. But the clarity, the calm, the precision with which I had navigated the storm revealed a strength I had not fully recognized in myself. I had been forced to confront not just external manipulation, but internal doubt, fear, and indecision. And I had emerged intact, wiser, stronger, and fully in control. I made a cup of tea and sat on the balcony, looking at the quiet city below. The wind carried the faint scent of rain, and the lights shimmered like tiny beacons of survival and resilience. The house, my home, stood as a fortress of calm, a sanctuary of clarity, a monument to boundaries respected and power reclaimed. Jason would eventually understand, perhaps, that his attempts at manipulation had failed. Dr. Calder would recognize the limits of his influence. Serena would find her path, hopefully clearer now that the truth was revealed. But none of it mattered to me anymore. My home, my life, my clarity, these were mine, fully and irreversibly. I poured another cup of tea, watching the shadows deepen in the corners of the rooms I had fought to reclaim. I smiled faintly, not out of triumph over them, but out of deep, unshakable certainty in myself. The storm had passed. The chaos had ended. The manipulation had been dismantled, and the truth, cold, precise, undeniable, had been restored. I took a final breath, feeling the weight lift, the clarity solidify, the calm anchor me. My home was mine, my space was mine, my life was mine, and I had survived. Not just survived, I had endured, acted, and emerged stronger. The night deepened, the city lights twinkled, indifferent yet beautiful, and I, finally, felt at peace. The story was over. The house, my sanctuary, stood firm, and I, fully present and aware, would never allow anyone to compromise it again.